Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lino Martinez. Today, I would love to welcome Amrit Singh. Is a high momentum life coach. He uses techniques and strategies based on his extensive knowledge and experience of meditation, habit development, and spirituality. He has been coaching people for over 25 years in Germany, India, USA, and Mexico. He helps successful men who feel like they're drifting apart from their wife to step up in their marriage, take divorce off the table, and bring back the connection, spark, and passion. Welcome, Amrit, to A Little Less Fear podcast. So nice to have you.
Thanks for having me, Lino. It's awesome to be here.
Absolutely. So, hey, this is a personal growth podcast along with motivating people. But before we get there, I'd like to know what brought you on this incredible journey that you're on now.
Oh my God. I would really have to tie it back to my childhood. Right. When I was really young, I would say till 7, 8, I was this super sensitive, super open kid. And I had this super high level of sensitivity, which I thought everybody had. Later found out that's not the case. And I was...
What do you mean by that, Amrit? High level of sensitivity. What do you mean by that?
Oh, just like little things, like I remember when I was younger and I had to go to the hairdresser and they cut my hair, and it would really I hated that feeling of cutting fingernails, or just I would sense everybody's emotion in the room and all these things. So there was a lot of input coming in. And then I realized, I was very soft and very kind as a kid. And then my dad, who grew up in the after Second World War area in Germany, was a very tough guy. And he was just like, oh yeah. And he was very sensitive too, but he covered it up in this really tough shell. And I remember this point so clearly when I think I was 10 or 11 and I was upset and crying about something. And he was like, oh, come on, don't be such a pussy or crybaby or whatever he said, right? And I was like, oh my God, he's right. I should just be tough. And so I put on this wall and this armor and I became this tough guy. And then I lived this tough guy persona for probably 10 years till I found yoga and meditation. And that was a rough time. But it kind of, looking back at it now, it kind of allowed me to lay the foundation for the work I do now, for my spiritual journey, and for so much more, because this breaking out of this, oh my God, you don't need this layer, you don't need this armor, you can put all these pieces down and you can just become this soft, kind human being, which you already were when you were 5. Can't be that difficult.
Exactly. Yes.
And so to really come back to that was a journey for me, and it was pretty, life-changing.
So then you had to let go of what your father told you to be a tough guy, stop being the P word, and you had to let go of this hard shell that you developed for over 10 years and go back to how you were before.
Yeah, and it's been a journey. I think I'm still traveling there. I'm still not 100% there, and I catch myself still in the, oh yeah, come on, just tough it up. But it's great because my son is now 11, and he's super soft and super kind human being. And so I get this daily reminder to just, encourage that kindness and encourage that softness, and be very gentle with him too when he wants to just be the tough guy, because that's also part of the experience.
Sure.
As long as you don't lose yourself in it. Right. And I think it's super cool to see him go through that age.
Oh, I bet, especially because you went through it, and now you're actually able to allow him to blossom the way he's supposed to without any interrogation, because it does feel like you're being interrogated to be.
Yeah, no, totally. And it was like, that was this thing with my dad. I mean, there was that point when I was 11 But I still remember, like, when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, it was already going in that direction, but I never made that shift, where I shifted my persona and just put on this mask of the cool guy in the leather jacket. Later I had my black lowrider, and I was the bully in school, and like all those things. I ticked every single box of being an asshole in that
Yeah,
time. But at the same time, I disconnected from myself so much because I was
sure.
just living this shell, this persona, this not really truly being me.
Hmm.
And so when I found yoga and meditation with, I think I was 19 or 20, I I really was like, oh my God, like with my eyes closed, deep inside, I can really connect with that softness, and no one will know. And I can just be that soft version of myself. And so it took me another 5, 10 years until I started expressing that, then getting married and having kids. Obviously, that helped me a lot to really connect to my heart and just being, more open and more kind and more giving.
You said something earlier that going through that whole bully stage, kind of tough guy stage, the walls up, that was a means of you laying the foundation to what you're doing now. Could you elaborate
Yeah.
with that? To that?
Yeah, I'm kind of naturally drawn towards the tough guys now. When I see
Okay.
a man who's really shut down and really tough, I'm like, ooh, look, that's me 20 years ago. I want to give that guy a hug and tell him how amazing he is and have him chill out and relax and just be his authentic self.
Yeah.
So this has been a thing like all my life long, when there's like a big gang of 50 bikers or something, everybody wants to make a big circle around them. I walk right towards them because
Uh,
I know, how much love and how much kindness there is in those people. And they're just playing this persona because it's part of God knows where it's coming from, but it's not truly them. And so I always see past that tough guy persona in everybody. And I think for so many of us men, we're stuck in that, right? And now in this new time, also a lot of women are stuck in it too, in this tough guy of, oh, I need to have everything together. I need to have it all figured out.
Very
I
true.
never cry. I never make mistakes, like that kind of person.
Right.
And so I have so much compassion for it now.
Mhm. Let's talk a little bit more now about the inner softness. What is this inner softness that's within all of us?
Ooh, what a great question. I think it's a state of being that we all experienced while our mothers were pregnant with us, while we were little babies being nursed, while we grew up. And it's just so much part of our identity to be soft. I think this outside persona is something we take on when we're like, okay, I need to perform in school, I need to be popular, I need to be popular with the people I like. I want to have a lot of girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, I want things. And so I need to play this persona. And when I was young, my role models were James Bond and Rambo. So you can kind of see
I
which
still love James
direction.
Bond, by the way.
Oh, yeah, super cool. Just don't be an ass, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So these were your role models growing up, but you knew that there was some. So as you're saying this, I'm wondering from your point of view and your experience, what is the difference between someone's ego and this persona that we gain from outside sources? Is it the same thing or is it different?
I think the ego is really just a tool which allows us to keep ourselves safe, right? It's a little
That makes
bit like,
sense.
hey, I'm not sharing my food because I know then I can eat for the next week and I don't give a shit if you die of starvation. That's ego, right? To
Okay,
just be like, I want this for myself. I
I see.
want that big house and I don't give a shit if you don't have money or not because I got the big house because then I'm safe. So the ego's job is really to keep us safe and keep us contained and keep us protected. And it works really well.
That makes sense. So the ego is more for survival, you're saying?
Yeah, it's like that lower chakra energy. We were chatting a little bit about chakras
Yes.
earlier. So it's kind of that it's really important to survive, to be safe. And those are my first needs. Can't talk to anyone about spirituality while they're in the war zone and they're getting fired at every
Oh,
single
right.
day. And
True.
they, are afraid for their lives. And so it's this, when you can make a person safe and you can feed them and you can provide love and you can provide outlet of communication, and now suddenly they feel full and contained, then spirituality is really just the last piece to connect you to your true being.
That really makes sense. Actually, I love how you describe that, because I feel that a lot of people misinterpret what the ego is, and then they start kind of attaching other words to ego, like injured ego or healthy ego or unhealthy ego. But all of it is, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, it's all really a form of survival.
Yeah, it is. And actually, my favorite form of ego to deal with is the spiritual ego.
I
And I
love
think
this.
that
You know what?
that's
I've actually never heard that, Amrit. Spiritual ego.
it's the hardest one to overcome, because when you go really high and you have really a deep connection with the infinite and you're really in tune, and then you start looking around and you're like, ooh, I'm so much better than everybody else. Look at me. I meditate for 3 hours every day. Look at me. I only eat my vegan diet. Look at me. I do everything perfectly. I never hurt anyone else's feeling. That's the spiritual ego. And that's the last one to overcome. Because when you can come to the point, and one of my favorite quotes is, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. And so that's that.
If you can see God in all, you come again.
Yeah, then you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all.
I love that. I love that. If you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all.
Yeah.
And so before you got to where you're at right now and you started meditating, let's go back to your journey. So you started to tap into your inner softness. And what were some of the first discoveries that you found out about yourself to led you to do what you're currently doing now, which is helping men save their marriages? What led you? What was the spark? What was the intuitive nudge that brought you to where you're at today?
Well, it was kind of my own journey and doing it without help, and figuring stuff out and running into roadblocks. And then when I the first time had a coach in my life, and I kind of went on the, like in hyperdrive, like in Star Wars, and I was like, oh my God, I can move and change so quickly because I have this other person to reflect back off. And I was just like, I was hooked. I was like, okay, I need to do this. This is something which I'm already doing, but I never called it coaching. I never structured it in that way, but I really want to do this. And that was my main motivation to go all in and to say, like, okay, I stop all the other activities and I jump in 100% into coaching.
And I can imagine that when you jumped into this type of coaching, that it was also helping you as well.
Oh, it still helps me every day. I mean, every conversation I have with a client, I walk away from, oh my God, I learned so much about myself today. This was so amazing. And I get paid for this. I mean, it blows my mind still every day because I would do it for free, but it doesn't work when you do it for free. So it really works when, you receive payment for it.
I definitely want to go down this path right now to talk about this, but I have a question right now. It's about
Yeah, go ahead.
higher
Yeah.
self. So when you started going into the softness part of yourself, would you say that this soft part that's within all of us is our higher self?
I would say that softness allows us to be authentic because we get to accept ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's very easy to connect to your higher self when you're authentic and when you're soft. So it's kind of a prerequisite for connection with the higher self.
That makes sense. It makes it easier. And that's also because there's less resistances. Because when you have
Yeah.
resistances, you have got walls up, and that's not allowing your authenticity to come in and shine through. Therefore, how are you
Yeah.
even going to be intuitive? What is intuition? Anyways, I mean, I just love. I'm passionate about this stuff. So, coming from your experience, how would you describe what intuition is?
I think intuition is really to be in touch with your higher self. But again, it sounds so woo-woo, and I don't like going down that road. So it's really more being truly authentic and really trusting your inner voice, even if it doesn't serve your immediate benefit.
You know, I love that. I've never heard it that way. So, being truly authentic means trusting your inner voice. And that definitely makes sense, because a lot of the times it's what is authenticity? Like, how does
Yeah.
somebody become authentic? How do you become yourself? How do you feel into it? And that is by listening and trusting that inner voice. And that inner voice comes from, what does that inner voice come from?
I think that inner voice comes from your connectedness to, again, there's the higher self, right? To, you can call it whatever, but just to be in tune and be in flow. And to kind of come back to our example, which we had earlier about the ego, when you have all your food
Yes.
saved up and you see someone else who's there starving, and you're like, if I give half my food away now, I only get 3 days to live instead of 6 days. And it doesn't make any sense. And my ego says I should keep all my food. And you take half of it and you give it away anyway, trusting and knowing that that's authentically you, and that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will provide and make sure that there's something else coming.
Trusting that resources are always available to you no matter what, especially if you're acting out the authenticity and the kindness of the softness, which is your inner guidance, which is your inner love, which is your inner light. Everything else lines up after that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful. Okay, great. So then you decided to follow your inner voice and trust your inner voice, your authenticity, to help men save their marriages. Can we talk about this?
Yeah, I love talking about it because I'm so passionate about it, because it was something I struggled with myself. I came to a point after being married for 18 years where I'm like, okay, why am I doing this? Like we're in fights, we're struggling. It's like, what a mess. Like every time I see her, I go like, oh, there she is again. I'm in a bad mood. But I couldn't bring it together with, hey, I'm committed. This is my family. This is the person I married. This is the person I'm committed to. I love this person so much. And I couldn't bring the two pieces together. And we just kept like growing apart from each other. And I always had this in the back of my mind where I was thinking, if she would just change, my life would be so much better. Our marriage would be better. Everything would be better. So this is the solution. You just need to change. Come on. This is the easy way, right? And like for anyone who's ever been in a relationship, that's not how it works.
Never.
The other
Never.
person will never change.
Right.
And it doesn't work like that because we're the same way. If you ask me to change, I'll be like, I'm not going to change. Why? Because you asked me? No. But if I change because I want to change, and I change because I take 100% responsibility for our relationship, that's where the true power lies. Because now I can't make excuses. Now I can't blame it on her. Now I can't say, but she does this and she always does this and it drives me crazy. But instead of saying, I need her to change, I want to take responsibility. I want to dive in. I want to work on my communication. I want to work on creating trust in the relationship. I want to work on connecting at a deeper level and really exploring values. And then something super cool happens. I'm actually working on communication with myself. I'm working on building trust with myself. I'm working on exploring my values. And suddenly I start to grow and I start to expand and I start treating her nicer in that moment. And she goes like, oh my God, what's going on with this guy? This is so weird. I'm going to wait and check and see how long this lasts. And if you can make that continuous change over a period of 3 months, that's when the real turnaround comes. That's when your partner will say, you know what, I want to also change. I want to make a difference in my connection with you. And that's when you start closing the gap. And it's a slow process, but you come closer together. That's where the emotional intimacy starts to build. That's when, the sex gets better and everything changes. All those things which before were a huge issue and you wanted her or him to make the change, right?
And that begins with change within yourself. How do you get men who come in with that hard wall, the hard shell over them, the bully, the attitudes, this hard stone over them? How do you get them to tap into this part of themselves and get out of this denial phase and into this open phase?
Well, I get them to first commit to themselves because that's the beginning of it all. And I do that on the first call with them. And one of the reasons I charge a high fee for my coaching program is because that's the entry wall, right? That's the bump you need to get over. So if I can get you to commit to investing in yourself at that level, I know I have someone I can work with, because that is a person who will actually say, like, look, oh shit, now I put money to it. I better do the homework. I better watch the classes. If you sell a course like this for $300, people will be like, oh yeah, I bought this course, didn't do anything. And then you ask them, did you watch it? They're like, no, I didn't. I was so lame. And like, but you charge $6,000 for the same course, people will show up for themselves just because they paid that kind of money. And that's what I had to learn the hard way, because I was serving people for $25 a session, and they wouldn't show up. They'd be, oh, so sorry, forgot our session today. Since I charge more money for my services, no one ever misses a session. They value their work on themselves. They think they're valuing me, but it had nothing to do with me. They show up for themselves, and I'm just providing the framework and asking the right questions, but they do all the internal work. And it's a beautiful process because they show up for themselves. And the money is the key motivational factor in there.
Prior to finding out that money was the key motivational factor, what were some other roadblocks that you encountered with men opening up?
Oh, one of the biggest challenges was I didn't have time to invest enough time into my coaching, because I had to run a 9-to-5 job because I needed money to pay for rent, pay for my kids' school. Sure. And so it was really a limitation. So I could work with very few people only. And honestly, I found, and maybe that just has to do with that I have such a close relationship to the bully and to the closed up man, is I never found an issue with anyone having a hard time opening up. Because ultimately, when you can truly connect with another man or another woman heart to heart, and you really show up authentically for them, and you're creating a safe space, these people will start opening up. And obviously, like someone who's been closed up for 40 years doesn't open up as easily as someone who has a lot of experience in opening up and sharing their feelings. But for those people, they open up, and then they want to open up more, and they feel super comfortable opening up again, because they realize the benefits of just sharing a little bit more about themselves with another human being and hearing themselves talk to themselves, because they don't even open up with themselves, but they do open up in those coaching sessions with me.
Take us through typically what one of your programs go through. Is this a group of men, 8, 9, 10 in a group, or is it individual, or is it a retreat? Take us through what it looks like.
I do a mix. I do like a mix where I do a class once a week where I'm presenting a new concept, right? Just like a new idea, and to kind of get the mind going. And then I follow that up with a group coaching session where we each go deep into the process. And that's really powerful because that's me working one-on-one with one member in the group and the other people listening. And for the people who are listening, it's just like the whole time the heads keep going like this. It's like, oh my God, this is like exactly like me. And I thought I'm alone with this. And now hearing you talk about it is so powerful and it's really life-changing. And then in addition to that, I also do one-on-ones. And the reason I do the one-on-ones is just because I love going deep with one person and really have an hour and allow just space for that person to be seen. Because when you see someone truly, it's much easier for them to connect to their authentic self than when they're not being seen or when it's just a 5-minute snapshot.
Exactly. At what point do you notice that there's a change that's starting to begin with your clients?
I mean, I see a change from the first time I'm on the phone with them, because just for someone to show up and book a time on my calendar and say, hey, Amrit Singh, I want to do a free call with you is already a huge step.
It is.
And then to open up through the process and just to talk about things and to say like, oh my God, I think I have a problem. That's already huge.
It is.
And then from there, if they choose to work with me or not, that's two separate roads. But if they do choose to work with me, that's when we start picking that up. And we're saying like, okay, so what actions can you take to really grow towards that best version of yourself? Because that's all, it always comes back down to that. And it always comes back down to how can you live a more authentic life? And guys will say to me, how can I be authentic? I need to work 10 hours a day and then I come home and then I need to do this, I need to do that. And those are all real issues.
Sure.
But we break those things down and I allow them to have these small successes where I say, yesterday I was authentic for 20 minutes and I just spoke to my partner and I shared what I truly felt. That's a huge breakthrough for someone who never speaks about their feelings.
That is a really huge breakthrough. That's really fast. I love how all this kind of just unravels and opens up for everybody. And I can also imagine that when there is a group of men, people feel like they're not alone as well. And that also allows them to open up with one another. And it just allows more windows of opportunity for growth and expansion and just to be showering themselves with love. It's really beautiful what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a thing which it's high time for us men to catch up. Women have been doing this for the last 30 years. Groups of women circles, all those things.
Right.
It's been happening because they understood how valuable it is. And we're all just like, oh, let's drink a beer and watch some ball game, right? So it's this, and then we're all like, oh yeah, I'm so cool. Oh yeah, you're really cool too. Yeah. Oh, come on. What are you, like, and all that stuff, which is so like, okay, gets a little boring.
It does. I agree with you 100% there. It really does. I mean, there's rarely anything authentic about that.
No, it's not. It's just boring.
It really is. And so building trust with yourself allows for expansion and committing to yourself. What is something that you feel is really pertinent in someone's development when they're finding their authenticity?
I would
about
say
this? I guess I'm wondering, if somebody isn't in tune at all with their inner voice or their authentic nature, how can you help them tap into that?
Well, I want to answer your first question first.
Yes, thank you.
What's the biggest one for them to find their authentic self or find a glimpse of their authentic self? It's really this realization that they have an authentic self, where they're like, whoa, this was inside of me. This was not you doing something to me or you telling me that I have an authentic self. Like I touched that. I felt that. I felt so real how I haven't felt real in 20 years. Oh my God, I got yelling in the background. Let me just close the door. Sorry about that. My dog pushed open the door.
That's okay.
So to come back to my line of thought, it's this having a glimpse and seeing and connecting with this part of that's how it feels to be real. That is, blows people's minds. And that's how you can get someone to say like, oh, And guess what? You can achieve that by meditation practice. You can achieve this by exercising and running. You can achieve this by prayer. There's so many ways to connect to that part of yourself, but you have to practice it. It doesn't just come by itself.
Could you give an example of a client that you had where they had this realization?
What would be a good example to share? I mean, my favorite clients are the ones who don't have any spiritual background, who don't meditate, who don't go to church, who are like, yeah, this is all like woo-woo stuff anyway, and it's so weird, but they still show up. They still show up with
There's
me for
some kind
reason.
of curiosity still
There's
within
something,
them.
right?
Yeah.
And so this is the other thing with me looking like this. I kind of have this natural barrier because they're like, oh, this guy looks like that. I already have an idea of what I'm going to get. So the people who show up are the ones who will tell me, yeah, when I was a little kid, I would meditate, I would do things, but now I'm a grown man. I don't do those things. And to really like bring them back to that connection, because like every baby knows how to meditate. If you ever like observe a mother nursing a baby, and she's having the baby on her breast, and that baby is nursing, the eyes are rolling up to the third eye point, that baby creates such a powerful meditative state that the mother goes into this meditative state.
That's
and
incredible.
Every person who's sensitive enough to notice it walking in the room goes like, ooh, I better be quiet. It's like a monk is sitting there meditating, and that's a baby. And we all been there. So we all have this inherent ability to meditate deeply and profoundly to a place where it's complete bliss, right? And it's complete Amrit coming into your blood system. It's like in the latest Avatar movie. Have you seen it?
Not yet, and I'm looking forward to it.
So I don't want to ruin it too much, but they are harvesting this essence of life from the pineal gland from these big creatures. And that's in Sanskrit called the Amrit. And that's that sweet nectar. That's where my name came from. And so it's that nectar, which when you go into super deep meditation, and we're talking, 18 hours a day for weeks,
wow,
which starts dripping down into your body. And so it's a really powerful substance. Mm-hmm. But then again, we all as human beings have this ability to do this because we all did it when we were 15 days old. So it's this natural state of being. And that's, again, where natural state of being comes together with being your authentic self, because it's the same thing, right? And you were already your authentic self when you're a little baby, when you're a little kid. And there came a point where you decided that you needed to play a role in this game of life to get more love or get the needs of your ego met, or get that new bike or whatever, like whatever your motivation was at that time, where you learned, oh, if I'm nice, then I get what I want. If I'm, super tough, then everybody's afraid of me and I can, get the biggest piece of cake or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. But that removes us from really connecting with our authentic self, which it always is the point where we come back to.
So if our authentic self is that state of being, that complete bliss, that nectar that we can all naturally connect to, if this is our true being, what are we to learn from this true being? Are we able to figure out our life purpose? Are we able to figure out what we're doing here simply by being?
And I love that too, because I don't think there is even any figuring out which needs to be done. Because
once you're being, and there's nothing to figure out.
You're already being, exactly. But also it's already there. It's always this figuring out is a little bit, oh, let me go out in the world and find the answers and find the wise man on the mountain and get all the answers and get everything which I need from this life. But it's much more this going inwards and being like, okay, I had all the information when I was 10 days old on this planet. And now I'm 40 and I don't have it. Okay, where's the disconnect? because you still have everything inside of you. You just put on so many layers of distractions and things over it that it's hard to see. And it's hard to differentiate. Is this my ego who wants this? Is this my true self that wants it? Am I really being authentic here? Am I pretending to be authentic? Which is another big, great one in the spiritual
Yes.
work. It's like, oh, I'm so authentic, right?
Right,
So
right.
there's all those layers. And that's again where a technique like meditation comes in so helpful, because when you truly sit and you just sit with yourself and you sit more and you sit for a long time, it really allows you to unpack all these superficial things which you believed about yourself. Like, is that really true that I'm a man? Or is it really true that I'm a coach? Or is it true that I'm a father or a husband? Or what's really the essence? What's really behind all this? Who am I really? If all these superficial things fall away.
Exactly.
And that's where it gets super interesting, because you're getting closer to, oh my God, I'm just like love and kindness and giving
Exactly.
and
Yes.
uplifting others and not causing pain. And that's who I truly am. And I'm using this persona of being a man or being married or being a father to practice those things, right? And so that's kind
Yes.
of the connection in there.
I love that connection. Absolutely love it. So would you say that it's linear or on the same plane, living in the present moment and being present and being?
I think being present is a beautiful tool, because it allows you to practice to connect to the current moment. It allows you to practice to connect to your body, to connect with your emotions, to connect with your mind, to practice acceptance, to really just practice being with yourself rather than projecting yourself into some future or remembering some past. In reality, there is only the present moment. Future is a probability, the past is a memory, but none of that exists. What really exists is only the present moment.
Mhm.
We're just creating this thought construct around it of really saying, oh, I think, yeah, tomorrow I do this and the next day I do that and I'm going to be there. But all of us live in the present moment. There's no other moment to live in. You can disconnect from it a little bit, but then again, let's come back to the baby. Where does that baby live? In the future, in the past? Oh my God, it was so nice in my mother's belly, and now I'm out here in the cold world, having to work hard to get food into my system. I want to go back there, right? That's not what the baby thinks. The baby is just present and just
Sure.
lives in the present moment, and then gets all this conditioning to not anymore.
Absolutely. So going back to the men finding their authenticity, when men start to find and this is the men with the broken marriages and saving the marriages and such, when they start to find their inner voice, their authenticity, there starts to become a shift in their marriage, correct? So a positive shift, a more loving, accepting shift.
Well, that's kind of the end result. What really happens first is there starts coming a shift in how they relate to themselves. And, suddenly they're just a little bit kinder to themselves. They're a little bit more trusting with themselves. They have a little bit more exchange with their own emotional state and what they're going through, and when they feel afraid and when they feel angry and when they feel frustrated and when they're going through these things, rather than just pressing it all down saying, oh, I'm perfect, nothing wrong with me, I don't want anything, right? But to really say like, oh my God, I'm so angry right now, I'm so pissed, and I'm going to take care of this in a healthy way and go for a run, or I go outside to cool off, or I do something. I'm not going like to go check on my kids' homework now and realize they're on their phone and start yelling and screaming and being an ass. But I take care of myself and I accept that aspect of myself. I accept that I'm angry and I do something about it. I go do some push-ups, or I take a cold shower, or I do something about it for myself. And then I come back an hour later and I come to my wife and I say, my God, I was really angry. And I'm so proud of myself that I didn't try to have this conversation with you why I was angry while I was angry, because that would have really gone the wrong direction. So I recognize that I'm showing up for myself and then can bring that in my relationship. And I can say like, look, this was really an issue for me.
I love what you said right now, as far as recognize even that you're proud of yourself for not going off the deep end, and even recognizing that, and even that can be even challenging to recognize, hey, I'm proud of myself, and celebrate yourself. I did something that was peaceful for myself, and then in turn there was a peaceful side effect or an effect thereon after.
Totally. And you don't have to be perfect in it. Just to get 10% better, just to get 5% better at it, it's already a celebration because you're moving in the right direction.
This is incredible. I love this. And so how long do men commit to being one of your clients?
The minimum is 3 months, because I found that really anything shorter than that is just kind of like, a little blip on the radar, and it doesn't make a big difference.
Yeah.
I really, I want to see results for those men I'm working with. And so by doing it for 90 days, which also is a yogic number, but obviously I'm not leading with that. I just said like 3 months is a good amount. But this 90 days in the yogic tradition is something where really the brain chemistry starts to change and adjust. And you start thinking differently about yourself. And you start seeing the world differently. And things really shift on a deep level.
That's really interesting. Would you say that's the same for everything, as far as 90 days creating a shift within your
reality,
within your full reality?
Yeah.
And 90 days creates a shift with your mind, body, and soul, or is this the shift neurologically or spirituality or all of the above?
Oh, it's kind of a connection between your mind and your emotional body, where you're really starting to integrate these new habits you have developed into your being, and it starts becoming part of you. Like there's the other yogic number is 40 days, which, Jesus already practiced when he went to fast in the desert for 40 days. There's so many 40 days this, 40 days that. The reason that is like that is because in 40 days, you take 20 days to break a habit, and you take another 20 days to reestablish a new habit. And so that's a great way to change habits. But we're so much more than our habits. But the habits is kind of the base. So the 40 days is part of the 90, and it allows you to go deeply into the process and integrate this new version of yourself, and really believe that you are this new version of yourself. And not just thinking, oh my God, I'm just faking it. This is so unreal, and this is not me, and this is so lame.
How does somebody begin to believe that they are this new version of themselves?
By feeling it, by seeing it, by experiencing it. When I show up and I'm super angry, and I make the choice to go outside to cool off and then talk to my wife about it the next morning, I made a choice to show up differently. And that becomes my new reality. And so this is really this 3-month process over the 90 days really allows you to practice continuously, and I have a lot of homeworks in there, and I have a lot of assignments where I say, okay, I really want you to take these things we talk about in theory here and try it out, and come back to me if it doesn't work. And then let's talk about it, why it didn't work. And then it becomes real, right? It's not just this fake superficial thing where like, oh, I got all the theory, I saw a YouTube video on it. But it's really like, how does that apply to my life?
What is an example of an assignment that you give them?
Well, for example, I love the structure of the 5 love languages, because I think it's just such a beautiful explained idea from Gary Chapman. And he wrote this whole book on it. But what I do is really have them find out what is their own love language first, and then dive into the next step and say, okay, now find out what you think your wife's love language is. And now go out and consciously make an effort to do something in her love language rather than in your own, but in hers.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like one of those things, like we all fell into that trap when we were younger in our sexual relationships. where you're like, oh, I'm just doing to you what I really want you to do to me. Yeah. And I don't really give a shit if you like it or not. But,
Right.
like when you come over that hump and you're like, it's actually about what they like. Wow, what a
Yes.
concept, right? It's the
Yeah.
same in communication. It's the
Right.
same in
Yes.
love. It's the same in relationship. So when you can figure out what fulfills your partner
I love that.
and what allows your partner to feel loved by you, and you just don't do
Yeah.
the things like, you always loved receiving gifts and you feel so loved when someone brings you some flowers, and you keep bringing your partner flowers and they're just like, oh, flowers again, thanks.
That's
Super.
happened to me before.
Right? But when you really figure out what their need is and
Right.
what they really need to feel loved,
Uh-huh.
and you start experimenting with that and you say, like, this is so weird, I
Yeah.
never sit for half an hour and talk to her, but now I'm sitting every night and I'm not even looking at my phone and I'm not reading a magazine and I'm actually
Right.
listening to her. And she starts expanding and going like, oh my God, he loves me again. And the
Yeah.
guy's like, what? Because I sat here for half an hour?
Yeah.
Like it, even like they don't understand it, but they
Right.
see the effect. And they're like, I don't know. My wife is super nice to me. What's going on? It's like, just keep doing that. You're doing the good thing.
Keep doing that. Just opening up communication and asking what fulfills them. You said a magic word was allow. What fulfills your partner and allows them to feel love? Because something can fulfill someone, but if it's not allowing them to actually feel the love, it's not going to go in any direction in that case.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think allowing is, again, such a powerful thing. And it's great to practice in our relationships because we can practice with our partner, right? We can practice allowing. But really, what it's really about is as allowing ourselves to truly be, allowing ourselves to express who we truly are, allowing ourselves to be authentic. Because one of the big reasons we don't show authentically and connected to our higher self is because we have put some blocks down, we have put some rules down, we have put some stories down, which don't allow us to go there.
Interesting, huh? Allowing yourself, getting rid of the roadblocks, getting rid of the walls, finding your authenticity. And once you find your authenticity, you are in a path in the state of allowance.
Yeah.
And that's when you find your inner voice.
And that's when you get your allowance, because then you're
Yeah.
actually getting abundant and prosperous.
This has been incredible. This is magical. This is beautiful. I love what you're doing. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find you if they need you as a coach? This is amazing, Amrit.
So the two traditional ways are just through my website and my landing page for my marriage program, and that's coachingnow.info for my website, and then the other one is marriagereconnectionroadmap.com. And I'm sure we can put the links in the show
Yes,
notes on the
definitely. We
bottom,
will.
makes it easy for people. But the fun place to find me is on my TikTok account, because
Really?
I'm on TikTok and I love doing TikTok and I'm having so much fun with TikTok. And I'm experimenting with all kinds of new things, and I post videos of stuff which inspires me. And it's the funnest way. And you can, just write me a message directly there too. And I love doing it. And of
What
course,
is
you
your
can find me
TikTok
on
account?
Instagram. It's just my name, Amrit Singh Range. But it's big enough now that you can just write in Amrit Singh and my stuff should come up.
Well, I'm definitely going to follow you on TikTok, and I'll do that today. Thank
Super
you so
cool.
much for sharing your incredible love, light, and your energy with us. And it gave me a lot of things to really think about. I love how you said first commit to yourself. And that's really important. When you learn how to commit to yourself, you then know that you're basically on your way ready to find your inner self, your authenticity. And what is authenticity is your inner voice. This has been really beautiful. Thank you so much for being on A Little Less Fear podcast. Do you have any final words, something that you want the world to know?
Oh my God. No pressure there.
Yeah.
I loved your podcast. I love the way you ask the questions and you put things together. I love your authentic self and the way you show
Thank
up.
you.
It's been really a blessing for me to be on your podcast. And I think as final words, I'd be like, just practice being that 1% more authentic. And don't do it out in the
Love
world
that.
because that's all scary, right? And then you get feedback and people tell you why you're weird today and why you got a new haircut and why you this, right? But practice with yourself. Practice
Yes.
at night when you go to bed, practice in the morning when you're in the shower, practice when you sit alone and you drink your cup of coffee. Don't pull out your phone and distract yourself. Just be like a little bit more authentic with yourself and just practice some simple breathing and do something which you already know how to do because you did it as a baby.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. And I love your authenticity. Thanks so much for sharing your love and light and your authenticity. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Dr. Lino Show, A Little Less Fear podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can do so by sending me an email at a little less fear at gmail.com or through an inquiry from my website at www.alittlelessfear.com, where you will always find information on where to get my book. You can get my book on Amazon and Amazon paperback version, Kindle or Kindle Unlimited. And I also create incredible visual video poetry for people that are interested in marketing or even just to send a personal note to anybody or somebody that you might love. So yeah, check it out. I love it. Poetry is my passion, one of my other passions, aside from doing what I do right now, which is giving you all the motivation that you need to keep growing, to keep motivating people, motivating yourself, and to keep expanding. I love you all so much. Have a blessed day and take care. Rock on.